Is British Airways Premium Economy worth the money? Today we're flying from London Heathrow to New York JFK to find out if the seat gives enough extra comfort, if the food and drink is a good enough elevation from economy, and to see how British Airways Premium Economy stacks up with competitors. Let's get going. Now, BA Premium Economy was actually one of the first videos I made on this channel, but that was closing in on 2 years now, and that was the last time I flew Premium Economy with BA, so very interested to see what's changed over the years and how I rate the service today, especially given all the flights including Premium Economy on different airlines that I've done since that flight. Quite an early start for this morning, so we stayed overnight at the Sofitel at Heathrow, so it was a nice short walk over to the terminal. Premium Economy passengers over in Terminal 5 do get a dedicated check-in area, and there are other minor benefits on the ground like additional luggage allowance and a slightly higher boarding group, but aside from that the ground experience is pretty similar to economy, with no lounge access or fast track. At the time of taking this trip though, I was just into my last 2 months of having BA Gold status, so before I dropped down to Silver I wanted to make the most of the current status and go through the first class wing. Due to the early start we decided to leave it as late as possible before we got to the airport, so being able to just zoom straight through security at the first wing before grabbing a quick breakfast in the lounge seemed like a good use of our time. And our check-in here at the first wing was incredibly fast and security was possibly even faster. No one else really around and we were straight through, down the walkway and into the first class lounge. Now since all BA Gold status holders can get access to this lounge, it's often completely packed out, but at 6:30 in the morning it was thankfully relatively quiet. Within the lounge, in addition to the full service bar, there's also areas where you can help yourself to spirits, soft drinks, beers, wines, and of course champagne and snacks. Plenty of comfy seating available at this early time. You definitely have to fight a bit more for a good seat later on in the day, but we just made our way straight over to the breakfast. I grabbed a cappuccino from the machine and then got myself a full English from the buffet. All very good food, and I decided I quite wanted to fill up in here, to be honest. I wasn't having high hopes for Premium Economy breakfast. I would normally go into it a bit more open-minded, but my last flight before this was on BA First Class where the breakfast was terrible, and I kind of thought if they can't do it well in First Class, Premium Economy wouldn't be anything too much to look forward to. So after a second round of food, grabbing some waffles and some fruit, it was time to leave the lounge. We'd be departing from the B gates today, so that meant there was a bit of a journey to get over to the gate. And our gate was called pretty much as soon as I finished breakfast, so we timed it quite nicely. There's two main ways you can get over to the B gates and the C gates at Heathrow Terminal 5. The first, which is the way that most people take, is to just hop on the tram and it'll get you over there in a couple of minutes. That said, you can end up waiting a few minutes for it to arrive and it can be pretty crowded, and we tend to prefer to instead go down to the walkway and just get some steps in. Particularly if you're about to hop on a long haul flight, it's just nice to get a bit of movement in before you have to sit down for several hours. And it's always nice and quiet down there, you just have to watch out for the buggies that zoom by and hope that they don't run you over. Our departure today was from gate B34 on a 777, not the A350 I'm filming here unfortunately. And when we got into the gate, they hadn't quite started boarding yet, they were still doing the pre-boarding for people who needed extra assistance, but it wasn't too long till Group 1 was called. I believe travelling on a Premium Economy ticket without status it would be Group 3, but because of our status level we were Group 1, so we're among the first on board. They did leave us waiting in the jet bridge for a bit of time, but nothing too bad, and for once it was actually a nice temperature in here. I feel like these things are usually too hot, but thankfully not today, and we were soon on board. I received a warm welcome from the cabin manager while stepping on board, who welcomed me back as a BA Gold member, and we made our way through the business class cabin, which is where we'd be for the return flight. Back in Premium Economy, seats are set out in a 242 configuration compared with the 343 back in Economy. This obviously means wider seats in Premium Economy compared to Economy, but it is worth noting that some competitors do have 232 on their 777s. But overall it was looking like a nice comfy seat, and waiting at the seat for me was a blanket, a pillow and a small amenity kit. A very good amount of legroom here, only slightly restricted by that chair leg that sticks down and the entertainment system, and there's also a footrest that folds up and down. Next to this is a water bottle holder, but no bottle of water was provided. That's something I have been given from the start of the flight on previous BA trips. The seat in front has a good sized storage pocket, and there's also another smaller storage area just above this. The in-flight entertainment screen was a good size and looked nice and modern. The control for this is inside the left armrest, alongside controls for the recline and the leg rest. Within the armrest itself, the tray table folds out from here. You can slide it away from you and towards you, and it folds over to make a bigger tray table. Not the most sturdy when it's fully folded out though, it has to be said, and it was a little bit dirty. After putting that away I decided to release the leg rest. I did find this leg rest pretty ineffectual to be honest. The weight of my legs seemed to push it straight down again, it didn't really hold its position, so I just kept that tucked away for the majority of the flight. In comparison, a recent flight in Emirates I actually found the leg rest to be really strong and supportive. The recline though was very good. It goes back pretty far, you've got a nice supportive headrest as well, And as we'd chosen the back row, it meant that we'd be happy to recline our seats straight away without having to bother anyone. And then to round off the seat tour, there was a small hook to hang a jacket, there were reading lights above the seat but no individual air vents, and there was charging between the seats, 2 universal outlets and 2 USBs. I was waiting to take off, I decided to browse the in-flight entertainment screens. BA usually has some of the best selection in the air, and I've generally found that I only get better selection on the likes of Emirates. But it seemed like the system here hadn't been updated. It didn't have a lot of the latest releases that the BA website said it should have, and there was a menu option for June arrivals despite the fact that this was a September flight, so it clearly hasn't had any of the updates from July, August or September. In addition to the in-flight entertainment, Wi-Fi was available at a cost of £15 for the whole flight, and I did find that it worked fairly well. The crew then came around with a small glass of fizz, which was actually quite a nice one, and then they came round again shortly after with the menus for today's flight. Having already had my full English in the lounge, I decided I would definitely be going for the pancake option on the menu. As I mentioned earlier, I had quite a bad full English on my first class flight recently, so I really didn't trust what they would offer in premium economy for that. So let's see what they can do with the pancakes. In addition to the food, a decent selection of spirits, wines and soft drinks available, and also a couple of cocktail options, which I think is a nice touch for premium economy that you don't often get. We pushed back on time, which I've actually had quite a lot recently with BA. I'm always surprised when it happens, just given how their record's been over the last few years, but I have found the flights I've had in the last year have generally been pretty on time. And as we pushed back, that safety demo started to play. So as we make our way over to the runway, I do want to talk a bit about the cost of today's flight and the kind of value that we get for this. But before I do first just want to say a massive thank you to my Patreon supporters who helped to make these videos possible. And to say that if you also want to support what I do on the channel and get early access to my videos plus bonus videos that don't appear here on YouTube, then please do follow the link in the description. A massive thanks again to my Patreon supporters. Now let's talk about the cost of today's flight. Well, we used Avios and a voucher at a cost of 60,000 Avios total, so 30,000 Avios each, plus £152.50 in taxes and charges per person. Now, regardless of the quality of today's flight, that is a great value for a premium economy transatlantic flight. But I will keep in mind that some people will have paid a lot more for that for this flight, and I'll try and judge the quality and value on that basis. So let's see what we get for that cost. Once up in the air, I made myself more comfortable and got reclined. As I said before, that's one of the main benefits of being in the back row. You can just recline immediately and no one's going to get bothered by it. And whilst waiting for the in-flight service to begin, I took a quick look in the amenity kit. It's all pretty basic stuff, but it's about on par with what you'd expect from premium economy, and certainly better than what you get in economy, which is nothing. Here you get an eye mask, socks, lip balm, dental kit, and a pen. Hot towels were then handed out by the crew, and I decided to settle in and watch a film. Since there weren't really any new releases available that I wanted to watch, I went for an older film and decided to give Scarface a go. Some decent earphones provided. These are actually the same ones they provide in business, and they're a huge step up from what you get in economy, but to be honest, still not the best for noise cancellation or quality or comfort. So I did just end up using my own personal earphones for today's flight. Great quality entertainment screen though, I've got to say. Even with the window shade open the whole flight so I could glance out the window from time to time, the light that was coming in didn't affect my ability to see the screen. Breakfast was served and we decided to both go for the pancakes, which I thought were looking pretty weird to be honest, not at all like pancakes. These were accompanied by some fresh fruit, a cold croissant, a small muffin and a yoghurt. Not a crazily exciting meal, but should be filling enough. All this is served on proper plates and you get proper metal cutlery, so a bit nicer than economy. Well, despite appearances, those pancakes were actually pretty good and the fruit was really nice as well. All the other accompanying bits just added a bit of bulk, they were nothing special, but overall a decent meal. It had been about an hour from takeoff until that food and drink service had started, and it was then another further hour before the tray tables were cleared, as the crew do need to serve the economy cabin as well as premium economy. Another thing that's shared with economy is the toilets. On my previous BA Premium Economy flight, we did actually have a dedicated bathroom for Premium Economy, but that was not the case on this 777. The bathroom also wasn't in the best state. Without giving details, it seemed like someone had been a bit unwell and had left a bit of a mess. It was pretty grim. Kelly was a little cold, so I tried out the bedding. You get a decent pillow and a blanket, about as good as you want in a Premium Economy cabin when you can't fully lie flat. At this point I started to crave a drink. There was no proactive drink service following, before or during the meal, and even during the meal service they were asking if we wanted tea, coffee or juice. I'm sure we could have asked for alcohol if we wanted, but it wasn't directly offered. That contrasts heavily with recent premium economy experiences on Emirates and Cathay Pacific, where the service was very proactive and I was often asked if they could get me anything. Now, the crew were very friendly and they were very good when asked for something, but it did just lack that proactive service, and between meals they were pretty absent from the cabin unless the call bell was hit. But even then you were lucky to get someone to show up. In fact, it took a whole 25 minutes for someone to arrive after I pressed that call bell. I tried out one of the premium economy cocktails, the gin fizz. Not the nicest tasting, to be honest, all I could really taste was gin, but it did get better further down, so maybe just needed a bit more of a mix, or maybe I was just a bit more drunk by the end of it. Shortly after they brought me that drink, the crew did then go through the cabin giving everyone some water, but they did disappear again after that. As a result, everyone was just heading back for the galley whenever they wanted anything. And it was the same for getting rid of rubbish as well, and empty cups too. Everyone just took them back to the galley as nothing was getting cleared. I do get that to many this will not be a big deal at all, but if you can't elevate the service from economy, it devalues the benefit of paying for that higher cabin, and other airlines seem to be able to do this much better. Eventually, the passengers in front of us both reclined, and this really does eat away at the space, especially if you need to be in or out of the seat. I attempted to demonstrate my attempt, and it was a complete fail as I stumbled my way through, knocked over what I thought was an empty cup that ended up having some melted ice left in it. After eating a bag of crisps that I'd swiped from the lounge, we then had our first and only full drink service that was offered just under 2 hours before arrival. This was the only time they went through the cabin with the full drinks trolley and offered snacks as well. I asked for a rum and coke, which was accompanied with a bag of pretzels. Initially there was no rum, so she just gave me the coke and said she'd return with the rum, but unfortunately it turned to be quite the wait, and I believe the whole economy cabin was served first before she finally came back to say that unfortunately they were out of rum. And now before landing we were served our final snack, a fairly underwhelming box of sausage roll without the sausage, instead filled with cheese and onion. A veggie samosa I believe was the other option. Look, it was tasty in fairness, but just a bit unimpressive compared to the second meal service that you find in premium economy on other airlines. Just recently I was served afternoon tea on Emirates of a flight of a similar length, and nasi goreng on Cathay Pacific, so a proper second meal service on both of these, and all 3 flights are about a 7-hour duration. So, overall thoughts on this one? Well, let me get the positives in first. The seat is very comfortable and I was able to be completely relaxed in the seat for the duration of the 7-hour flight. It's got a great recline, a nice width and a good headrest and footrest. The crew were all very friendly, the food generally tasted good, and it was overall a pleasant journey. For all these reasons, I'd personally be happy to pay a couple £100 more for this over what BA for economy anytime. If it was to cost significantly more than that, however, then it would be a bit of a stretch. If, however, you're using points like I was today, well, it's not a huge amount of extra points or taxes and charges to go for business class, so this would have been 80,000 points in business class versus the 60,000 that we pay for premium. So if you do have the available points and there's availability for business class, then I would just say go for that. That's especially the case for an overnight flight, as sleeping in those premium economy seats can be a real struggle, especially compared with business class. But would I choose BA Premium Economy compared with other airlines? Well, let's consider the negatives. There was a real lack of proactive service from the crew, primarily I think due to the fact that there was no dedicated premium economy crew, so they were having to spend a lot of time dealing with economy. Now, I'm not expecting business class levels of service, but the other recent premium economy flights I've taken delivered well beyond what BA offered here. There was also no dedicated bathroom for premium economy, and there were often queues or messes in the toilet. The second meal or snack was very limited compared with other airlines, and there wasn't much on offer between the 2 meals. The drinks menu was on par with other premium economy services, maybe even slightly better by having cocktails, however they did run out of some spirits midway through the flight. Now that's a lot of gripes there, but none of them are major issues or deal breakers for me. However, of the 3 premium economy flights I've flown over the last few months, BA was the least impressive. Emirates had a better seat, service and dining, and whilst Cathay Pacific's seat wasn't as nice as BA's, they outperformed BA in all other areas. Over the next few months I'm going to be trying out a lot of other airlines in premium economy, including Virgin Atlantic, American Airlines, Delta and North Atlantic, so I will be interested to see where I place BA's premium economy after all those other flights, but for now it unfortunately sits at the bottom for me. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss any of those upcoming flights, and if you want to see those experiences with Emirates and Cathay Pacific that I've referred to, both should be on screen now so you can pick which one you want to watch next. Thanks for watching, I hope you found it entertaining and useful, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.